Hi, my name is Noeli, and before you scroll past me, I need you to know something. I almost didn't make this video. I almost deleted the whole account before posting a single thing, because every time I looked at the camera, all I could see was what everyone else saw first. My skin. These red patches, these scars, this face that I spent years hiding behind filters, behind long hair, behind excuses like, I don't really like photos. I built an entire second life just so people wouldn't have to look at me too long. I grew up being the girl people felt sorry for. That was my identity. Kids would invite me to parties out of pity and then forget to save me a seat. Even my family treated me like I was fragile, like I was something that needed to be handled carefully. My mom used to say, "Noeli, you're beautiful on the inside." But do you know what a 16-year-old girl hears? She hears, but not on the outside, not in the way that matters right now. So I created a version of myself that nobody could pity. I created Noel. No face, no backstory involving dermatologists, just a voice. Noel wrote stories about girls who were overlooked, and for the first time in that digital space, I felt seen. Not pitied, seen. I kept the two lives separate. At school, I ate lunch alone. Online, I was someone whose writing gave people a reason not to give up on their own stories. And then I met Marcus. He was a reader who didn't just say, "Loved this." He actually understood what I was feeling underneath the words. He told me, "Whatever you've been through, it shows up in the work, and the work is beautiful." I was 16, and someone finally called what I made beautiful. For months, we talked about everything, but I was still hiding. The problem with building something perfect is that eventually the thing you left out takes up more space. Marcus asked to meet. He said, "I feel like I know you better than anyone." I was terrified. I told him I wasn't ready, and he just said, "I'll be here." I started looking at my face differently, not as something that happened to me, but as something that was mine. There's a difference. I sent him a photo on a Thursday afternoon. No explanation, just 3 words. "This is me." I watched the clock for 11 minutes. He said, "Thank you for trusting me. You look exactly like someone who writes the things you write." It was a small thing. It was everything. When we finally video called, I wore my hair back. He smiled and said, "Hi, Noeli." Hearing my real name in his voice, it was the most grounding thing. We talked for 3 hours about a book he hated. He never made my face the topic. He just talked to me like I was a person, because I am. I started writing characters who didn't get fixed, characters who were messy and funny and happened to have things that made the world harder to navigate. I started this channel because girls kept asking how I did it, how I showed my face. I realized it was time to say it once, out loud, on camera. I still have hard days. I still catch people staring and want to dissolve. But I stopped letting the hard days be the only days that counted. I discovered that my face was not the reason people would fail to love me. The people who see you will find a way, even through layers of fear. My name is Noeli. I am the girl behind the scars, and I'm just getting started. Stay purple. Bora Hai. And that's the thing nobody tells you about starting over. It doesn't feel like starting over. It feels like standing in the middle of a room you've lived in your whole life and suddenly noticing a door you never saw before. You don't know what's behind it. You don't know if you're ready. You just know it's there now, and you can't pretend it isn't. That's where I was when I uploaded my first video. I want to tell you what that day actually looked like, because I think people imagine these moments as cinematic, like the person sits down, hits record, and something shifts in the atmosphere. Birds stop mid-flight. Light comes through a window at just the right angle. The music swells. What actually happened is that I sat down and stood back up 11 times. I drank an entire glass of water. I rearranged the things behind me on the shelf 3 times, even though none of it would be in the frame. I read back through what I had written so many times that the words stopped making sense. And then I sat down one more time, looked directly into the camera, and said my name out loud. Hi, my name is Noeli. 6 words. That was it. That was the hardest part of the whole thing. Not because saying my name is difficult, but because saying it on camera, with my face visible and my skin visible, and no filter and no careful angle, meant that there was no longer a version of this where I got to stay hidden. The second that uploaded, the double life was over. Noel and Noeli were the same person. And the world, or whatever small corner of it, was about to stumble across a brand new account with 0 subscribers and 1 video, was going to know that. I didn't sleep that night. I checked my phone at 2 in the morning, and the video had 14 views. 11 of those were probably me refreshing the page. The other 3 might have been Camille and 2 strangers who clicked by accident. I put my phone face down and told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I hadn't done this for views. I told myself the whole point was just to do it, just to be honest, just to exist on camera without apologizing for what I looked like. I believed approximately 40% of that in the moment. By the morning, the number had not changed dramatically. But there was one comment. One. From an account I didn't recognize, a username that was just a string of letters and numbers, the kind of account that looks anonymous on purpose. And the comment said, "I have the same thing. I've never seen anyone talk about it out loud before. Thank you." I read that comment sitting on the edge of my bed with my hair still a mess from sleep, and I felt something move through my chest that I don't have a perfect word for. It was gratitude and grief and relief all at once. Gratitude because someone had found it. Grief because I knew exactly what it meant to have spent years looking for something like this and not finding it. Relief because it confirmed what I had suspected but hadn't been able to fully trust. That somewhere out there was a person who needed to hear the exact thing I had been too afraid to say. I got up. I washed my face. I sat down and started writing the next one. That's how it began. Not with a viral moment. Not with an algorithm suddenly deciding to push my content to thousands of people. With one comment from one anonymous account and the decision to write the next thing anyway. I want to talk about what happened over the following months because I think the version of this story that gets told online is usually the highlight reel. The follower count going up, the moment the numbers start moving, the brand deal or the feature or the other creator who notices you and suddenly your trajectory changes. And those things did eventually happen, and I'm not going to pretend they didn't feel meaningful when they did. But that's not the part I want you to remember. The part I want you to remember is the Tuesday night, 3 weeks in, when I had posted 4 videos and gained maybe 200 subscribers, and I sat on the floor of my bathroom because the bathroom is where I go when things feel like too much. It's a habit I've had since I was small. Something about the cold tile and the small enclosed space makes the world feel temporarily manageable. I sat on the floor of my bathroom and I read through every comment on every video, and I made a list in my notes app of every person who had said something that indicated they were going through something similar to what I had been through. There were 23 names on that list. 23 people who had found something in what I made that connected to something real in their own lives. I sat with that number for a long time. 23 people who felt less alone because I had decided to stop hiding. And I thought about all the years I'd spent telling myself that my face was a reason not to show up, that my condition was something to work around, to minimize, to apologize for with a filter or a strategic camera angle. And I thought about those 23 people who might have their own reasons to hide, their own things they had decided made them less eligible for visibility. And I thought about what it would have meant to teenage Noeli to find something like this. I cried on the bathroom floor for a while. Then I got up, went back to my desk, and started writing the 5th video. Around month 2, something started to shift. Not dramatically, not overnight, but comments started appearing from people who weren't just relating to my skin. They were relating to the story, to the online writing, to the person who had built a whole separate identity because the real one felt too vulnerable, to the experience of being seen by someone before they know what you look like, and then being terrified of what changes when they do. Someone commented, "I did something similar, but with music. I put songs online under a fake name for 2 years. Nobody knew it was me. I understand this more than you know." Someone else commented, "The part about your mom saying you're beautiful on the inside, I felt that in my bones. My dad used to say something similar, and I could never explain why it hurt." Someone wrote, "I've been talking to someone online for 4 months, and I haven't shown them my face yet. Reading this made me want to. I'm scared, but I want to." I responded to that last one. I said, "You don't have to do it until you're ready. But when you are ready, do it the way you want to do it, not because of pressure or because you feel like you owe them something. Do it because you've decided you trust them with it." She responded the next day and said, "I did it. He said I have kind eyes." I'm shaking. That exchange sat with me for days. It still does, honestly. Because here is what I have learned in the months since I started doing this. Visibility is not the same as vulnerability. You can be visible and still have walls up. You can show your face on camera and still be performing a version of yourself rather than actually being yourself. What I was trying to do, and what I'm still learning to do better every single week, is the other thing, the harder thing. Showing up in a way that is actually true. That means talking about the days when I don't want to film. The days when I look in the mirror and the old voice comes back, the one that tells me to stay small, to stay quiet, to not take up space that wasn't specifically offered to me. The days when someone in my actual physical life, not online, not a stranger in the comments, but someone I know and care about, says something careless about my appearance, and I have to decide in real time whether to let it land or to push back, or to just excuse myself and go process it somewhere private. I still have those days. I want to be clear about that because I have watched enough of this genre of content to know that there's a version of the story where the creator went through the hard thing and came out the other side permanently transformed, and now they have this steady, unshakable peace with themselves that they dispense to their audience from a comfortable distance. That is not this channel. That is not me. What I have is not permanent transformation. What I have is practice. I have gotten better at noticing when the old voice is talking. I have gotten better at choosing, in that noticing, what I do next. Sometimes I make a good choice. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I film a video on a day when I feel genuinely okay, and it shows in my face and my voice and the way I talk. Sometimes I film a video on a day when I'm struggling, and it shows in a different way, and I post it anyway because I think the struggle is part of what this is supposed to be. I posted a video 3 months in where I talked about a bad week. I didn't go into specific detail because some things are still private, and I think boundaries around what you share publicly are healthy and worth keeping. But I talked in general terms about a week that had been hard, about feeling like I had made a mistake starting this channel, about a specific interaction that had reminded me why I used to hide in the first place. That video got more responses than anything I had posted. Not in numbers, although the numbers were higher too. In depth. In the kind of messages that come in at 2 in the morning from people who clearly typed them out and deleted them and typed them again before hitting send. People who said things like, "I needed to hear that it's okay to still have bad weeks," and "Thank you for not pretending it's all figured out." And one message that said simply, "Me too. I'm having one of those weeks, too. I'm glad you said something." Me too. I'm having one of those weeks, too. That's the whole reason I'm here. That's the whole reason any of this is worth doing. Not the metrics, not the growth, not whatever comes next in terms of this channel becoming something larger than it currently is. It's the me too. It's the recognition that travels from one person to another through a screen and says, "You are not as alone in this as you thought you were." I want to tell you about Marcus, because I started this video talking about him, and I think you deserve to know where that went. We met in person for the first time in the spring. He took a train and I drove 2 hours, and we met in a city that was exactly in between us, which felt like the right kind of compromise for two people who had been meeting in the middle of things for the better part of a year. I was nervous in a way I hadn't been nervous since the first day of school every year for approximately the first 12 years of my life. That particular cocktail of hoping desperately that something will go well and being unable to fully believe that it will. He was already there when I arrived, sitting outside the coffee shop we had agreed on, looking at his phone, wearing the same hoodie from our first video call. I recognized him before he looked up, and when he did look up, he stood immediately, and the first thing he said was, "You look exactly the same as on camera," which should not have been a particularly moving thing to say. It's a factual statement. Of course I looked the same. I hadn't changed my face or borrowed someone else's for the occasion. But what he meant by it, and what I heard in it, was, "You showed up as yourself, and that's who I was expecting, and that's who I'm glad to see." We sat in that coffee shop for 4 hours. We walked around the city for 2 more. I got a blister from shoes I had chosen for appearance over comfort, because some habits take longer to break than others. We talked the way we always talked, about everything and nothing, covering territory that somehow always felt new, even when we were revisiting things we had discussed before. When I drove home that night, I called Camille from the car, hands-free, and I talked for almost the entire 2 hours. She listened and asked questions, and at the end she said, "So what happens now?" And I said, "I don't know exactly. Something good, I think." And she said, "I think so too." That was the spring. It's been several months since then. I'm not going to narrate every detail of what has happened because some of it is still unfolding, and some of it belongs to me and to him, and not to this channel. What I will tell you is that it is something good, that the version of this story that ends with someone seeing the real you and choosing to stay is not only a thing that happens in the kind of stories I used to write, it happens in real life too. Sometimes, when you're lucky, and when you're finally brave enough to let it. I started Noeli's diary because I wanted to stop hiding. I'm going to keep making it because hiding is a habit, and habits need something to replace them. This is what I'm replacing it with. Showing up once a week with my face visible and my voice honest, and a story that is true, even when the true version is harder than the version I could have made up. You can be the person nobody looks at twice and still have a life that is worth narrating. You can be the girl behind the scars and still be the main character of your own story. You can spend years being invisible and then decide one ordinary day to be seen. I decided. I'm still deciding. every week, every video, every time I hit record. My name is Noeli. This is my diary, and I meant it when I said I was just getting started.